okay, I'm getting ready to head out. And I thought, I'm going to jump on here real quick and address some of the messages that I got. So I will say the majority of my messages, I would say like 98% of them is, okay, so great. This whole purpose and destiny and giftings, this is all great. So why did you drop that on us and not give us any direction on where to go and get it or how to achieve that? Like, things suck right now. So yeah, I want to go grab my purpose. I want to go grab my destiny. And I thought, wow, I guess I really wasn't clear on that. So number one, the very first thing you do is you have to have humility in your heart. And you just have to say, God, I believe in you. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to belong to some organization, some religious organization. You don't have to identify as a Catholic or a Baptist or a Pentecostal. All you have to do is you just have to have humility in your heart to say, God, I believe that there is something bigger than myself. I believe that there is something that oversees this vast universe, and I'm not equipped. God, I'm certainly not capable of navigating my life in so many areas and so many times in my life. I've just been completely lost as to where to go or what to do. So that's the first thing. And then I think the second thing is you begin to serve those around you. I know human nature, we are self-centered, we are self-absorbed. We want to be served, right? And we seem to think that those around us think just like we do. Our perspective is based on our experience, right? So I've experienced domestic violence. I've experienced devastation, but I've also experienced a wonderful side of knowing God and walking with Him my entire life. So I can't assume that everyone understands domestic violence or everyone understands this thing that I talk about, which is knowing God and God knowing me as an individual and as a person. So first of all, you start there. You don't, okay, so I would say there was quite a few messages from people in the church or religious people that wanted to know why I didn't incorporate scripture into my video. So I thought that was very interesting because growing up in the church, I have seen two people with opposing arguments use the same scripture against each other. So how does that work? So I'm like, I'm not going to use scripture against people for one thing. I know people that really, you say scripture, they're like, what do you mean scripture? I'm like, oh, the Bible or the Babble, as my granny used to say. And that they've never even read the Bible. I met someone this past Christmas that did not know that Christmas was the celebration of the birth of Christ. An American person that was born in America. She wasn't opposed to it. She just didn't understand it. So I think that is a key component to this whole thing, is not expecting people to see things exactly like you see them. And then I think living your life in a way that people know that there's something different. There's a higher source in you because they see it. They see it in how you treat people. They see it in your attitudes. They see how you tip your waitress when you go out to eat, how you're kind to people that are around you. And so I'm not going to browbeat people with scripture when there are people, believe it or not, I'm saying this to the church folks out there listening, that the Bible means nothing to them because the only experience they've had with people that state that they're Bible believers is they beat them up and they've condemned them. And I made a decision early on in my life when I experienced tragedy myself that I would not beat people up with something that they knew that they were doing wrong anyway, right? I feel like innately when we're doing something we know we're not supposed to do, innately we have that small voice that tells us this isn't right. And that's God's job. That's not my job to tell you what you're doing wrong or what you're doing right. All I can tell you and all I can do is share my experience with you. So first of all, God, I believe that there is a higher power, and I believe in you. And fireworks are not going to go off. They might, maybe if they do, please let me know. But it's just going to kind of just a nothing. It's not going to be this grand thing, but just that posture of your heart that you say, God, I believe in you. I don't understand everything about you, but I believe in you. And I'm asking you to oversee my life in my day-to-day walk. And then as you go through your day, just have an attitude of, running through your mind. You know what, God? I acknowledge that you're real. I want you in my life. Help me today to make good decisions. Guide me on where to go and what to do. That's it. I do it 2 or 3 times a day. It's like in the back of my mind. I'm like, God, thank you for all the wonderful things in my life. Thank you even for the things that I went through that were not so wonderful. Just thank you for your existence. And then start pouring into people around you. We are innately self-absorbed. We're innately selfish people. And it's so hard to look outside of ourselves. But I think if you start doing that, it'll be awkward at first. And it'll kind of seems like this really sucks. But the more you do it, I think the more your spirit becomes alive. The more you begin to actually get gratification from pouring into someone. How is that possible? I know that, we taught our boys how to treat their wives, but we also told our girls how to treat their husbands, how to treat their partners, how to treat their spouses. It can't go one way. It has to go both ways. And so I think when you begin to pour into people, the gratification that you get from that, you begin to walk a little lighter. The day seems a little better. And then I think doors begin to open. And it's really interesting because I had to really go through a horrific time in our family to come to a point where I knew how this whole thing was going to turn out with me. I got saved at 8 years old. I had a transformation. God touched me. And I knew at 8 years old when God touched me, because I was just in absolute desperation. My parents were going through things, and the only outlet I had was to say, God, as a little 8-year-old girl, I don't feel like I can make it through the day because the pain is so great from seeing my parents suffer that I need you to touch me. And he did. He came down and he touched me and he renewed my spirit. But there was a long time up until now. In 2025, I'm sitting here when this came fruition. I cannot say that word, but it came to pass. It's happening. But I remember one of the very first things that happened in my life was us losing our home back in 2010, and the shame and the humiliation from that, and crying out to God and saying, God, but I've served you my whole life, and I've served those around you, and we did what we knew to be right, and why is this falling apart? I envision my grandchildren growing up in this home, and as I'm packing up the drapes that I had custom made for that room, and I look around and I see every detail of the house has Kenny and I in it, and Emma and Wyatt and Jesse Cole and Isabella. And I thought, God, you have failed me. How have you failed me? And why have you failed me? And as the drapes were already down, and I began to fold them and pack them up to put them in a box, and the hem of the drapes kind of flopped over because it was heavy. And I thought, well, why is this heavy? I'm not a drape maker. And I remember seeing where they had sewn weights in the bottom of that drape. And those weights made those drapes hang perfectly and beautifully. The flow of those drapes were magnificent with the weights on them, but without the weights on them, they would have been going to left, to right. They wouldn't have hung right. And I remember God speaking to my heart and said, you see how those weights are sewn into that curtain to make that curtain more beautiful. But you also see that those weights are completely sewn into that curtain. There's no way for those weights to fall out. Your hope is in me. You are like that weight. You are bound up and you're sewn into the circumstance of your life. But I'm telling you that I am the one that can free that weight. I'm the one that can free you and bring the beauty and the flow back to your life. And I thought, thanks. I really needed to hear that. I was pissed off. I was mad. I was hurt. I'm like, I did not want to hear that. But in that moment, something just clicked in my heart. And I said, okay, God, I love you in the good times, and I will love you in the bad times. So I folded those drapes up, sealed that box with tape, and I loaded them onto the truck. That was in 2009. There's been a whole lot that's happened since 2009. So I'm telling you that it's not quick. It's not instant. We like fireworks. We like the grand. We like, the big, but it's the small moments. God, I just really feel that if you're faithful in those small moments, if you wake up daily and your family sees you with a spirit that is joyous and with an attitude that is good, don't go out and treat the world with joy and respect and kindness and then not display that in your own home. So if you do that daily, those small daily things when you're on your job and you begin to pour into other people, then your giftings and your purpose begins to unfold. So there you go. I hope I didn't ramble. I can ramble. I hope I made sense. My family jokes that I have Tourette's because I will just blurt out a thought and they'll be like, where the heck did that come from, Mom? I'm like, I don't know, but I've been thinking about it for a couple days. So I hope that makes sense. And I hope you guys have a great Saturday.